Welcome to the Ultimate Sports Podcast. Today's Monday, May 6th, 2019. Today I'm going to recap the NBA and Stanley Cup playoff games, look ahead to tonight's game, same for baseball, look ahead to today's games. We'll do the weekly power rankings, and then my best bet of the night. But we have to start with the most controversial sports ending we've had in a long time. The Kentucky Derby. Country House, who was a 65-1 long shot to wins via a disqualification for the original winner, Maximum Security, and he was disqualified because of interference, and then they overturned it via review. It took a while, and they made, in my opinion, the right call. Maybe we'll get somebody horse racing related on. Maybe my partner from Friday, Jeff Burns, and talk about it a little bit because it's such a big deal. And it was announced that Maximum Security will not race in the Preakness, which he shouldn't, in my opinion. And Country House, I know it really wasn't official per se win for Country House in terms of he didn't beat Maximum Security to the finish line, but because of disqualification, it does count. And now in 12 days from now, we have the Preakness. So that's going to be interesting with a lot of horses that were in the Derby going to be racing, and that maybe Country House will join in. We know Maximum Security won't be in. Maybe a couple of the Bob Baffert horses will be in it. So we'll talk about the Preakness when the time comes, and whomever I have on the podcast as a guest for it, we'll obviously discuss more of the disqualification for Maximum Security. And it was just incredible. And like I said, it's the most controversial sports finish we've had in a while, and I think the most controversial Kentucky Derby finish ever. All right, now we'll move on to the NBA playoffs, where there was a couple interesting games throughout the weekend. We'll start from Friday night. Bucks over the Celtics, 123-116 to take a 2-1 series lead. The Bucks look like the team that we thought they were. Giannis Antetokounmpo, 32 points, 13 boards, and 8 assists. Nikola Mirotic was starting. He had 13. Chris Middleton had 20. Off the bench, George Hill had 21, and Pat Connaughton had 14. Meanwhile, for Boston, all their starters scored in double digits. Marcus Morris, 16. Jason Tatum had 20 and 11, so that's a good thing for them, in my opinion. Al Horford, 17, 8 and 5. Kyrie Irving had 29 with 6 assists. Jaylen Brown at 18. And off the bench, Gordon Hayward had 10. It's just that they couldn't stop Giannis, and the fact that George Hill went nuts off the bench. That's pretty much was the difference in this game. And if I'm Boston, I think you still have a shot to perhaps steal the series. Trailblazers over the Nuggets, 140-137 in a quadruple overtime classic. CJ McCollum was the best player on the court, 41 points. 8 boards, 4 assists. Damian Lillard, 28 with 8 assists and 6 boards. Enes Kanter had 18 and 15. He's still dealing with the shoulder injury. Maurice Harkless had 15 and 10. Alfred Amino only had 6, but had 12 boards. And off the bench, Rodney Hood had 19. Meanwhile, for Denver, Nikola Jokic, 33 points, 18 boards, 14 assists. Paul Millsap had 17 points and 13 boards. Jamal Murray had 34 points, 9 boards, and 5 assists. He was hot down the stretch. Gary Harris had 13. Off the bench, Will Barton had 22. And Malik Beasley had 11. Saturday, Rockets over the Warriors, 126-121 in overtime. Now Golden State's series lead is 2-1. This series is not over yet. James Harden, 41 points, 9 boards, 6 assists. That was the biggest game he's had in a playoff game, perhaps ever, in terms of pressure and dealing with pressure and coming up clutch. James Harden deserves a lot of props, but he has to follow up with another good one, in my opinion. Eric Gordon had 30, including 7 3-pointers. Chris Paul had 14, 8, and 7. Clint Capella had 13, 11. Off the bench, Amon Shumpert had 10, including 3 3-pointers. You're not going to get that kind of performance from Amon Shumpert again. Meanwhile, for Golden State, Kevin Durant, 46 points and 6 assists. Stephen Curry had 17 points on 7 for 23 shooting, so that's concerning. Andre Iguodala had 16. Klay Thompson had 16. Draymond Green had 19 points, 11 boards, 10 assists. Stephen Curry's struggles, I think, is what came back to bite the Warriors here, and the fact that the bench didn't do anything. Sean Livingston didn't step up. Jonas Jerebko didn't step up. Kevin Looney didn't step up. Those guys have to be better, and Steph Curry needs to play better if Golden State wants to take a 3-1 series lead, because the crowd on Saturday night in Houston was great. James Harden was great. Chris Paul was great. Clint Capella is back to being the guy we thought he was after a lousy Game 1. PJ Tucker's hitting shots again. Eric Gordon's red hot from 3. So, the Warriors better be ready tonight. And last but not least, yesterday, Raptors over to 76ers, 101-96. That's a 2-2 series now. Kawhi Leonard was the best player on the court, 39 points, 14 boards, 5 assists. Marc Gasol had 16. Kyle Lowry had 14. Danny Green had 11. Off the bench, Serge Ibaka had 12. Pascal Siakam played even though he's not healthy. Tobias Harris had 16. Joel Embiid, regression with 11, 8, and 7. So, other than Game 3, has not really showed up in the series. Ben Simmons had 10, 5, and 4. Jimmy Butler had 29 and 11. So, he's been stepping up for Philly. JJ Redick had 19, and their bench did not show up in that game at all. Nuggets over the Trailblazers, 116-112. That's a 2-2 series now. Nikola Jokic with another triple-double, 21 points, 12 boards, 11 assists. Jamal Murray had 34. He led the Nuggets in scoring. Gary Harris had 14. Paul Millsap had 21 and 10. And off the bench, Will Barton had 11. Meanwhile, for Portland, Al-Farouq Aminu had 19 and 8 boards. Damian Lillard had 28 with 7 assists. CJ McCollum had 29 off the bench. Seth Curry had 16. And tonight you have 2 games. 2 games I'm very fascinated to watch. Bucks Celtics, 7 o'clock TNT. Boston is favored by 1.5 in their home building. Marv Albert, Chris Webber on the call. This is going to be some game at TD Garden tonight. And I think both teams are going to show up and play well. I think this is going to be an overtime game, and give me the Boston Celtics in front of their home crowd. So Boston has 2 big games tonight. They have this, and then they'll get to the Bruins in a little while. And I think the Celtics will get the win tonight. Let's go 110-113 in overtime. And I think Jason Tatum is starting to come around a little bit. Gordon Hayward, I think, will play well off the bench. Marcus Smart's coming back for Boston tonight, according to Adrian Wojnarowski. So he'll give that team a big boost, and I think they'll get a big win in result of it. So give me the Celtics to even up that series at 2 apiece. And 9:30 TNT, Warriors-Rockets, Kevin Harlan, Reggie Miller on the call. The Rockets are favored by 1.5 in their home building. This is going to be an interesting game. I'm concerned about Stephen Curry. I don't think he's 100%. I like how Eric Gordon's shooting the 3-ball. James Harden's finally playing well for him in the playoffs, especially in his home building. Chris Paul will step up. Clint Capella will step up again. PJ Tucker will knock down threes. I'm not relying on Amon Shumpert to do anything like he did in Game 3. I think Kevin Durant will play well. Klay will shoot well. I think Golden State's bench will bounce back a little bit, but like I said, I'm worried about Stephen Curry, and I think that the Rockets are going to come out with a chip on their shoulder and even up the series at 2 apiece, and I think it's going to be a close game that comes down to the end. I'm going to say 113-110 Rockets, and it's going to be a 2-2 series. Now we'll switch over to the Stanley Cup playoffs. where there were some interesting results from the weekend. We're going to start with Friday night. Hurricanes defeat the Islanders 5-2 to complete the 4-game sweep. That was an impressive sweep for the Carolina Hurricanes. It really feels like that it's meant to be for them, it looks like, because it's just they're winning in ways that are like spectacular in terms of overtime wins. Their home crowd's really into it, and it's intimidating for opponents. They're sort of like the little engine that could, but I think whomever they face in the next round is going to be more of a challenge. There's going to be, there might be a little pressure if they play Columbus. I think everybody would expect the Bruins to win if they play the Bruins, and all the pressure will be on Boston. And the Hurricanes are a team that are playing with house money, and the public is really betting them to win the Stanley Cup, that their odds are in like single digits, I believe now, which I think is insane. Meanwhile, first period, Matthew Barzal, second of the postseason on the power play, 1-0 Isles. That didn't last long. Sebastian Ao's fourth of the playoffs on the power play, tested up at 1 apiece. Second period, Teuvo Teravainen, sixth of the playoffs, 2-1 Canes. Another goal by the Hurricanes to make it 3-1 lead for Carolina. Greg McKegg. Justin Williams, third of the playoffs, 4-1 Canes. Third period, Andrei Svechnikov's third of the playoffs, 5-1 Canes. Brock Nelson's fourth of the postseason, that's a garbage time goal. 5-2 is your final. Just a sensational 4-game sweep for the Carolina Hurricanes. Number 1 star of the game with the goal and assist, Teuvo Teravainen. Number 2 star of the game with the goal and assist, Sebastian Aho. And the number 3 star of the game with 26 saves on 28 shots, backup goaltender Curtis McKinney. So they haven't really missed Peter Mrazek much yet. Stars over the Blues 2-1 as they took a 3-2 series lead. And this was a sort of boring game until later. First period, Jason Spezza's third of the postseason, 1-0 Stars. Second period, Issa Lindell's first of the playoffs, 2-0 Stars. Third period, Jaden Schwartz, 7th of the playoffs, 2-1. That made it interesting, but Dallas hangs on and gets the win. Number 1 star of the game with 38 saves on 39 shots, Ben Bishop. Number 2 star of the game with the goal, Issa Lindell. Number 3 star of the game with the goal, Jaden Schwartz. Saturday, 2 games. Bruins over the Blue Jackets 4-3 as Boston takes a 3-2 series lead. This was about as a wild of a third period you'll ever see. It was kind of reminiscent of Dallas-St. Louis third period in Game 3, where both teams were going back and forth, and eventually the Blues took the lead. There weren't goals scored in the first period. This game was actually delayed because of the Kentucky Derby. So instead of 7:15, it started at 7:30, and then NBC joined in progress around 7:40 because the Kentucky Derby coverage went overtime because of the review thing. But like I said, first period, no goals. Second period, David Krejci's third of the postseason, 1-0 Bruins. The wild third period, here we go. Boston takes a 2-0 lead on a goal by Brad Marchand about 5 minutes into the period. Midway through the period, Seth Jones' third of the postseason makes it a 2-1 game. About a minute later, Pasternak's fifth of the postseason makes it 3-1. Ryan Zingel's first of the postseason made it 3-2. Then Columbus ties it at 3 apiece on a goal by Dean Kukan to tie it up at 3 apiece. And then the go-ahead goal by David Pastrnak, his 6th of the postseason, second of the game, with about a minute and a half left to go in regulation. 4-3 Boston's your final. This was such a crazy finish to that game. Sharks over the Avalanche 2-1 to take a 3-2 series lead. San Jose rebounds and takes a series lead for good. They're a win away from the conference finals. Tyson Yost's first of the postseason, 1-0 Avs. That was in the second period. Then Thomas Hertl's 7th of the postseason on the power play ties it up at 1 apiece about 3 minutes later. In the third period, the go-ahead goal scored by Thomas Hurdle, his 8th of the postseason, 2nd of the game. 2-1 Sharks is their final. Hurdle was the number 1 star of the game. Number 2 star of the game with 21 saves on 22 shots. Martin Jones, number 3 star of the game with an assist. Logan Couture. Sunday, 1 game. Blues over the Stars 4-1 to tie it up at 3 apiece. Great win on the road for St. Louis. First period, Alex Pietrangelo, 2nd of the postseason, 1-0 Blues. Tyler Seguin's 4th of the postseason on the power play, ties it up at 1 apiece. Second period, David Perron, 3rd of the postseason, 2-1 Blues. Third period, Jaden Schwartz, 8th of the postseason, 3-1. Then the dagger goal by the Blues to make it 4-1, scored by Sammy Blaise. And that was it. And now we have a Game 7 in that series tomorrow night. Number 1 star of the game with a goal and assist, Jaden Schwartz. Number 2 star of the game with a goal, Alex Pietrangelo. Number 3 star of the game with a goal, David Perron. Tonight we have 2 games, 2 Game 6s. So we might have 2 more Game 7s, or we might have more teams going to the conference finals. 7 o'clock NBCSN, Bruins Blue Jackets, Doc Emrick, Brian Boucher, Mike Mulberry on the call. Maybe they make changes because it's later in the series. Maybe Eddie Olczyk does this series now. We'll see. Instead of Mike Mulberry, I think that would be a wise choice because I'm not a fan of Mulberry on TV. He's better suited for the studio. Meanwhile, Olczyk's done some studio work in the postseason. He's great in that role, and he's wonderful in the broadcast booth. So he's just wonderful wherever he is. But I just think Mulberry's better suited for the studio rather than the broadcast booth. So let's just assume it's Mulberry because he's been on the call with Doc Emrick and Brian Boucher this whole series and the previous round for the Bruins against the Maple Leafs. So this is going to be an interesting game. John Tortorella guaranteed a Game 7. I'm not a fan of when coaches or players guarantee a Game 7 or a win, and I think it won't happen for John Tortorella. I like that Boston has some momentum right now, and I picked the Bruins in 6, so why not? Bruins, let's say 4-3 in overtime. I think it'll be a close game. Sergei Bobrovsky will play well, and make sure Columbus is in that game. That crowd's going to be phenomenal, like it has through the entire postseason. But the better team is the Boston Bruins, and I expect them to win this game tonight. The Sharks and the Avalanche, 10 o'clock on NBCSN. Chris Cuthbert, Joe Micheletti, and Pierre Maguire on the call. They have done this entire series, so I would expect them to remain on this series. And I think that the Avalanche at home have been awesome, with the exception of one game, which was against the Sharks in Game 3. San Jose is a team that has faced adversity a lot throughout the playoffs, especially in that Vegas series. And they're a team that I really enjoy watching play. Martin Jones has absolutely turned his postseason around. I really think that the goaltender for the Avalanche, Philip Gaubauer, has really played his butt off too. But lo and behold, Nathan MacKinnon's the best player on the ice, and I think he helps the Avalanche force a Game 7. So give me, let's say, another overtime game. Let's say 3-2 Avs in overtime. MacKinnon scores the game winner. And I'm going to say that Brad Marchand scores the game winner for Boston to send them to the Eastern Conference Finals. All right, now we'll move on to baseball. We'll just go over yesterday's games. There's a lot of rainouts yesterday because the weather here on the East Coast was not pretty yesterday, although it's nice out here today. So let's just go through the results of all the games and look ahead to today's games. Tigers over the Royals 5-2 in 10 innings. As the Tigers improve to 15-16, KC drops to 12-23. Buck Farmer gets the win, he's 2-2. Ian Kennedy the loss, he is 0-1. Mariners over the Indians 10-0. Seattle is 19-17. Cleveland's 18-14. Eric Swanson the win, he's 1-3. And the losing pitcher for Cleveland is Cody Anderson. Braves over the Marlins 3-1 in 10 innings. The Braves go to 18-16, Miami 9-24. Josh Tomlin gets the win, he's 1-0. The losing pitcher for Miami, Teheran Guerrero. And getting the save for Atlanta, Luke Jackson. Pirates over the Athletics 5-3 in 13 innings. That was on a walk-off home run by Starling Marte. The winning pitcher of this game for Pittsburgh was Tyler Lyons, and the losing pitcher, Fernando Rodney. So this was some game in Pittsburgh. Phillies over the Nationals 7-1. The Phillies are 19-14. Washington's 14-19. Zach Eflin the win, he's 4-3. Anibal Sanchez the loss, he's 0-5. Red Sox over the White Sox 9-2. Boston sweeps them. They're 17-18. Chicago's 14-18. Brandon Workman gets the win, he's 2-1. Kelvin Herrera the loss, he is 0-2. Brewers over the Mets 3-2 as they sweep the Mets. They are 20-16. The Mets are 16-18. Zach Davies the win, he's 4-0. Jason Vargas lost 1-2. Josh Hader gets his 9th save of the season. Rangers over the Blue Jays 10-2. Texas is 16-16. Toronto's 15-19. The winning pitcher for Texas, Kyle Dowdy. The losing pitcher for Toronto, Clay Buchholz, he's 0-2. Rockies over the Diamondbacks 8-7 as they avoid a 3-game sweep. Colorado's 16-19. Arizona's 20-14. Sam Oberg gets the win, he's 1-0. Archie Bradley lost 1-3. Wade Davis gets his 5th save of the season. Yankees over the Twins 4-1. They called it off in the bottom of the 8th due to rain. Yankees go to 19-14. Minnesota drops to 20-12. Domingo Germán 6-1. Michael Pineda 2-3. Aroldis Chapman gets his 7th save of the season. Astros over the Angels 10-4. Houston's 20-14. LA's 15-19. Justin Verlander's 5-1. Matt Harvey 1-3. Padres over the Dodgers 8-5. This ended on a walk-off grand slam by Hunter Renfroe. San Diego's 19-16. Dodgers are 22-14. Adam Warren gets the win, he's 2-0. Kenley Jansen the loss, 2-1. Giants over the Reds 6-5. The Giants are 15-19. Cincinnati's 14-20. The winning pitcher for San Francisco, Tony Watson. Rafael Iglesias drops to 1-5. He's had a terrible season. Will Smith gets his 9th save of the season. Cubs over the Cardinals 13-5 on Sunday Night Baseball. The Cubs are 19-12. St. Louis is 20-14. Jose Quintana gets the win, he's 4-1. Adam Wainwright the loss, he's 3-3. Only one game was postponed. That was Rays Orioles due to the weather. I thought there was more, but nope. And going on right now is Reds Giants. Reds up 6-1 in the bottom of the 2nd. 6 o'clock, you have the White Sox and the Indians, Ivan Nova and Trevor Bauer. Nova 0-3 with an 8.33. Bauer 4-1 with a 2.45. 6:30, Mariners Yankees, Felix Hernandez and CC Sabathia. So this matchup would have been more fun in 2010 rather than right now. Felix Hernandez 1-2 with the 4.31. Sabathia 1-1 with the 2.66. And CC obviously is pitching well, unlike Felix Hernandez. So, just funny that 2 future Hall of Famers are going head-to-head that are no longer in their primes, although one of them is pitching well and the other is not. 7 o'clock, Red Sox, Orioles. Red Sox are playing a little better. Let's see how they carry over the momentum. They're going with an opener, it looks like. Josh Smith against John Means. And Means is 3-3 with a 2.81. Twins, Blue Jays. We'll see how the Twins rebound from the disappointing series against the Yankees. Martin Perez against Marcus Stroman. Perez 4-0 with a 3.41. Stroman 1-4 with a 2.2. Diamondbacks, Rays. Merrill Kelly and Blake Snell. Kelly 3-2 with the 3.6. Snell 2-3 with the 4.31. 7:40, Nationals, Brewers. Max Scherzer and Julius Chacin. Scherzer 1-4 with the 4.08. Chacin 3-3 with the 5.24. Phillies, Cardinals, 8 o'clock on ESPN. Vince Velasquez and Miles Mikolas. Velasquez 1-1 with the 2.73. Mikolas 3-2 with the 4.73. Tough call here, but I'm going to take Philadelphia on the road. Mikolas has regressed from a year ago. Velasquez, meanwhile, has improved from the last couple years. I like the Phillies as an underdog tonight to go into St. Louis and win. Bryce Harper will have a good game. Rhys Hoskins will go deep. And I just like the Phillies tonight on the road. 8 o'clock, Marlins Cubs. Sandell, Contra, and Cole Hamels. So Contra 1-3 at the 4.86. Hamels 3-0 at the 3.19. Royals Astros. Jacob Junis and Garrett Cole. Junis 3-2 at the 5.12. Cole 2-4 at the 3.95. 10 o'clock, Mets Padres. Jacob deGrom and Chris Paddock. That's a nice pitching matchup. deGrom's 2-3 at the 3.82. Paddock 2-1 at the 1.91. Braves Dodgers. Max Fried and Walker Buehler. Fried 4-1 with the 2.11. Buehler 3-0 at the 5.22. That's a nice pitching matchup as well. Now I'm going to do my power rankings for the week. Go from 30 to 1. And last week I was supposed to do my little project of looking back on 4 weeks and see how these statements are. But it's been 5 weeks since I made these statements on the podcast. It's going to be 5 weeks tomorrow because I didn't do a podcast 5 weeks ago. So I ended up doing it 5 weeks ago tomorrow, which would have been April 2nd. And now I'm going to go over these statements I made on April 2nd and see whether they're yeses or nos. 30, the Miami Marlins. Which young players have shown improvements? Jorge Alfaro, to me, somebody that's made the most strides. He's hits for some power. Meanwhile, on the flip side, Lewis Brinson is not because he got demoted back down to AAA. Brian Anderson's been solid. Sandy Alcantara's been on and off. Jose Urena on and off. But I think the most improved Marlin right now has to be Jorge Alfaro. 29, the Baltimore Orioles. Are they better than we thought? Guess what? I'm going to go balls to the wall and say yes. Yeah, they might be 10 games under 500. But at this point, I would have thought they would have been 20 games under 500 by now. So that's why I'm saying yes. Dwight Smith Jr. has provided some unexpected offense for them, and he's been an absolute revelation. Guys like John Means and others have pitched well for them. They're going to have some assets to ship away at the deadline. Trey Mancini's hit the ball well. I think he'll be out the door at the trade deadline. So they're going to continue to rebuild their farm system, and it's a improving farm system. As I mentioned in my series that I'm doing with the 30 teams' farm systems. So, yes, the Orioles are a better team than I thought they'd be, although they're still in last place in the American League East, and they're going to stay in last place in the American League East throughout the season. 28 is the Kansas City Royals. Is Brad Keller an ace? No. Although he has an ERA in the threes, he is not an ace. It's just as simple as that. 27, the San Francisco Giants. Madison Bumgarner looks motivated to be traded. I'm going to say yes. To me, he's only had one bad start all year, and that was against the Yankees, and he even went pretty far in that game and threw a lot of pitches. But that was literally his only bad start all year. Other than that, he's been spectacular. He pitched very well against the Dodgers, and I'm interested to see how he comes out in his next pitching performance, which I believe is tomorrow. 26 is the Chicago White Sox. Is this finally the year for Lucas Giolito? Nope. He has an ERA in the fives, and he looks like one of the bigger busts that I can remember over the last 5 years. 25, the Cincinnati Reds. Can Sonny Gray pitch in a small ballpark? This is one where we really don't know the answer to because he's only pitched one game in the American ballpark so far. He has a 4.78 ERA away from home, and his road ERA isn't bad, so let's give credit where credit's due. He's actually been okay so far for Cincinnati, although he's only had one start in Great American Ballpark. Number 24, the Detroit Tigers. The worst offense in the league? No, that's the Miami Marlins. 23, the Oakland Athletics. Is the starting pitching really this good? No. Yeah, guys like Frankie Montas and Brett Anderson got off to good starts, but they've regressed lately. Meanwhile, for Detroit, they were just awful the first couple days of the season. But guys like Miguel Cabrera started to hit a little bit. Nicholas Castellanos is finally getting going. Jeimer Candelario. There's a couple guys on that team that have been absolute revelations for them, like Jordy Mercer and even Josh Harrison. Grayson Griner's overperformed in my mind. So they're not the worst offense in the league. And meanwhile, even some guys in the A's bullpen have regressed too, but their question was starting pitching. So, Bert Anderson, after a hot start, cooled off. Same could be said about some other guys in their rotation, such as Frankie Montas. 22 is the Washington Nationals. Will Bryce Harper prove to be missed? They're sitting at 14-19, so you would say yes. But their number one and pretty much only problem this year, and the sole reason why they're 14-19 is their bullpen, so the answer is no. Number 21 is the New York Mets. Is this 2018 all over again? I think it is. They are coming off such a horrible sweep, led by Saturday night, them losing in extra innings. And it was just an awful loss. Jeff McNeil actually hit the go-ahead RBI single to give them the lead, and then their bullpen coughed it up in the 18th inning, and the Brewers found the way to win. Then Christian Yelich hits that bomb yesterday. We'll get to the Brewers in a little while. But, no. I really think the Mets, yet again, good start. It was a little bit of aberrational. Their offense isn't that good, but their pitching's coming around, so maybe it's not 2018 all over again. But right now I have to say yes in terms of how bad their bullpen's been at blowing games, especially Saturday night, and how they lost Saturday night. And that was so Mets. And the fact that Jesse Winker waved to them. Edwin Diaz has been a flop so far in my mind as the closer. Although they do have some nice additions, like Peter Alonso's brought real different look to their offense. Robinson Cano hasn't been that great yet, although I really don't think he's been healthy. But it looks like last year all over again, although this one could be wrong. 20 is the Los Angeles Angels. Where's Mike Trout's power? Oh, well, it's here because it was just late to the party. Although he was injured for a little while. Didn't hit the IL, but it's starting to come around. 19, the Toronto Blue Jays. Will someone else be moved? Ironically, I did this on April 2nd. I don't remember if Kevin Pillar was traded at the time I did these questionnaires, but I know Kendrys Morales was. So this was going to be a yes, and let's say Kevin Pillar was moved after I did this podcast, because I believe that was announced at night rather than during the day. 18, the Texas Rangers. Same old Rangers? No, actually not. They have a plus run differential, which is different. That just shows that their offense is out hitting how their pitching is doing. Their pitching, to me, has exceeded expectations, and that is a big reason why this is not the same old Rangers right now. 17, the Colorado Rockies. Kyle Freeland and German Marquez build on last year. No, both of those guys, I think, have regressed, especially Kyle Freeland, and I really thought that Freeland had a chance to be an all-star this year. But he has not lived up to expectations. Right now he has a 5.9 ERA, and meanwhile German Marquez has an ERA of 3.46, which isn't terrible, but I think people thought he'd be a little better than that. But Freeland's been a big disappointment in my mind. Number 16, the Pittsburgh Pirates. Is Trevor Williams an ace? Nope. He has an ERA around 4, so nope. 15, the Boston Red Sox. Do they already regret paying Chris Sale and Nathan Eovaldi? I'm going to say yes. Both of those guys have not lived up to their contracts. Sale's 1-5. He's only had 2 good starts all year. One of them he pitched well but got the loss because his offense didn't do anything. And the other one, he pitched well in his return to Chicago against his former team. So I guess that's what made him pitch well. But I think they already regret paying him. Meanwhile, Eovaldi, one good start all year against his former team in the Yankees at Yankee Stadium in a game which their bullpen coughed up. Number 14 is the Cleveland Indians. Is their offense really as bad? I'm going to say it is. They got shut out 10-0 the other day. Jake Bauers has not lived up to expectations. Francisco Lindor's starting to hit a little bit. Jose Ramirez hasn't really been that good this year. I think they regret some of the moves they made, such as trading Edwin Encarnacion and maybe they already regret trading away Yandy Diaz, who's lived up to expectations for Tampa Bay. 13, the Seattle Mariners. Is this offense really this good? I'm going to say yes. So many guys are having career years. Some guys that are past their primes are actually turning back the clock, such as Jay Bruce. And I think that Edwin Encarnacion is providing what they expected. I think that Mitch Haniger has been really good. Dan Vogelbach exceeded expectations. And this team really can mash. Number 12, the San Diego Padres. Fernando Tatis Jr. is already the National League Rookie of the Year favorite. No, he is not. Right now, that is New York's Peter Alonso, who I spoke about earlier. Tatis is on the injured list, which sucks for San Diego because he's really given them a jolt and energy. But they've actually done a good job without Tatis. They're still over 500, so you got to give credit where credit's due. 11, the Atlanta Braves. How much will their young pitching improve? It's improved pretty good. Max Fried has been awesome, and so has Mike Soroka, who is their top prospect. Max Fried right now has an ERA of 2.11 and a WAR of 1.1, which is sensational. And meanwhile, Mike Soroka has an ERA of 1.14 and a WAR of 0.8. So he is a pitcher that's trending up for the Atlanta Braves. Number 10, the Milwaukee Brewers. Christian Yelich is already the MVP favorite. No. And that's only for one reason. Cody Bellinger. If Cody Bellinger wasn't this red hot, Christian Yelich would be the favorite. But meanwhile, Yelich was hurt for a couple games, so that's against Yelich, but he's back, and he hit a monster home run the other day, as I mentioned before. I think that injury was a fluke, and I think it paid off for them that they didn't put him on the injured list. Number 9, the New York Yankees. Do they already regret not trading Miguel Andujar for, let's say, Trevor Bauer or one of the other Indian starters and signing Manny Machado instead of re-signing J. Happ? This is going to be a bit controversial because Happ has pitched a little better of late outside of Saturday's performance against the Twins, and Miguel Andujar is back from his injury unexpectedly after many folks thought he'd be out for the year. But I'm going to say they do regret it because Andujar is below average defensively, although he has the bat. Manny Machado, after a slow start with the Padres, is starting to heat up, although he is overpaid, and he still has a below average batting average by his standards. Meanwhile, Trevor Bauer looks like the AL Cy Young favorite, or one of the favorites to win the award right now, along with Tyler Glasnow of Tampa Bay. And J. Happ has regressed from last year, so that looks like a yes right now, but this one could flip if Andujar improves defensively, if Bauer gets hurt, if Machado doesn't live up to the contract, and if Happ pitches better. But hey, they can still trade for Trevor Bauer in the summer if the Indians are out of it, or Madison Bumgarner, or whomever's ace is on the trade market that's not a contender. So this isn't an official yes yet, but right now it looks like a yes. 8, the Arizona Diamondbacks. Is their starting pitching the worst in the National League? No, it's not. I thought that at the time because they're giving up so many runs to the Dodgers when I did this. But no, Zach Greinke is pitching like an ace. Merrill Kelly has been sensational. Luke Weaver looks like a guy that's benefited from a change of scenery. Maybe they get Taijuan Walker back at some point this year, but their starting pitching has exceeded expectations this year. Although they expected Greinke to pitch like an ace, and I think they want to dump his contract really bad. 7, the Philadelphia Phillies. Bryce Harper will live up to the contract? Nope, he's been booed a lot already. He's hitting, I believe, 240 with, I think, 5 homers. Rhys Hoskins is having a better year than Harper so far, so no. 6, the Houston Astros. Is the offense a little worse than we thought? Nope, that proved to be an overreaction. The Astros are indeed scoring runs, and their players are living up to the back of their baseball cards. And the problem with them has been the back end of their rotation and their bullpen to some sort outside of Roberto Osuna. 5. The St. Louis Cardinals. Is Paul Goldschmidt already the biggest and best offseason acquisition? Yes. He has changed the look of that St. Louis Cardinals team. He's brought in some swagger to that team. Yes, they've lost 4 in a row, but this is a team that looks like it's headed for big things this summer and in the fall. 4. The Minnesota Twins. Is this finally the year for Jose Barrios and Byron Buxton? Barrios looks like a yes right now, and Buxton, no. Barrios is somebody that has really looked like an ace thus far this season. He was sensational against the Houston Astros on Thursday. Right now, he has an ERA of 2.91 and a WAR of 1.1. Meanwhile, Byron Buxton did have a hit yesterday off of Domingo Germán of the Yankees. Right now, Buxton's hitting .263 with a WAR of 1. But let's face it, that's not what he was the top prospect in baseball 5 years ago to provide, a .263 average hitting ninth. This guy was supposed to be a perennial all-star, supposed to be in line with the superstars of the game, such as Mike Trout, Bryce Harper, and Aaron Judge, and he has not lived up to that. So he has not lived up to expectations this year. 3. Tampa Bay Rays. Is Blake Snell's regression real? Yes, it is. His ERA right now is 4.31 and has a WAR of 0.1. That screams regression. Number 2, Los Angeles Dodgers. Joe Kelly. Free agent flop already? Oh yeah. He has a WAR of negative 0.9 and his ERA is 10.13. Yikes. And number 1, after I believe it's 14-3 in their last 17 games, the Chicago Cubs. They've been absolutely great. Anthony Rizzo's hitting. Wilson Contreras is hitting. Chris Bryant's starting to hit again. He hit that big grand slam last night. And my question for them was really about their starting pitching and whether its age was about the show. I mean, Yu Darvish is a yes in that perspective, but on the flip side, Cole Hamels has been good. John Lester's been better. Jose Quintana's still young, and he pitched last night. He pitched very well after traditionally struggling against the Cardinals since he came over in that trade. But nevertheless, the Chicago Cubs deserve to be the top spot on the power rankings, and I played their song, Go Cubs Go, by Steve Goodman in honor of that. Alright, now my best bet of the day, brought to you by FanDuel. There's going to be some interesting choices on here because some picks of mine could be underdogs. Let's start in hockey. Let's go with the Bruins with plus 110. And the Avs are favored minus 130. We'll parlay those. We'll go to the NBA. We'll be ballsy and pick the 2 favorites on the money line in Boston and Houston. And then in baseball, we'll go with Trevor Bauer as a big favorite over in Villanova and the White Sox. We'll go with the red-hot Boston Red Sox over the Orioles. We'll go with Blake Snell and the Rays, even though Snell has struggled this year. We'll go with the red-hot Chicago Cubs and Cole Hamels. We'll go with Garrett Cole and the Astros. And those are 9 teams on the list. Plus 76.34, wagering $1. Payout $77.35. That's it for the podcast today. I'll be back tomorrow recapping everything from baseball, basketball, and hockey playoffs. And maybe I'll have another activity for you guys tomorrow. That's to be determined. And keep an eye out for the rest of the MLB prospect specials that I'm going to keep posting up. I hope you guys have a great day, everybody.